courage, compassion, faith, freedom, truth. It's time for Courage in the Darkness with the host, Philip Roberts. Awakening America to the indoctrination and radicalization. Let's get into it.
James chapter 2, verse 1 says, "Do not show partiality. Same rules for everyone, same treatment under law. No favoritism based on income in either direction." That's the biblical standard for economic justice. Not equal outcomes, equal treatment. Hold that standard in mind, because the progressive narrative on income inequality in America abandons it entirely. The argument goes the rich are getting richer, the poor is getting poorer, the middle class is disappearing, capitalism has failed, and the government needs to redistribute wealth to fix it. You have heard this from Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and every newsroom in the country for the past 20 years. Most of it is a distortion, not because inequality doesn't exist, it does, but because the statistics are being presented in ways that are deliberately incomplete, and the solutions being proposed would hurt the working class that they're pretending to help. 10 minutes, let's work through it. The standard inequality statistic that you're handed, the Gini coefficient, the income share of the top 1%, it's a snapshot. It compares different people at a single moment in time. It tells you nothing about the movement between income brackets across a lifetime, where the actual story is. A 25-year-old starting their career is in the bottom 20%. The same person at 50 with 25 years of experience and accumulated skill is in the top 20. Did inequality increase? No. One person moved through the income distribution the way that people do when they work and develop over time. The statistic counts them as two different people at two different points in the distribution, and it calls it a gap. That's not inequality. That's a career. The Congressional Budget Office ran the numbers using post-tax, post-transfer income, meaning after accounting for food stamps, Medicaid, housing assistance, earned income tax credits, and every other government transfer program. Result? Measured inequality drops 25 to 30% below what the standard statistics show. The standard statistics use pre-tax, pre-transfer income. They count what the top earner makes before paying their tax bill and what the bottom earner makes before receiving their government benefits. That's a methodology designed to produce the largest possible gap, not the most accurate picture. And the consumption data, what people actually buy and use, tells a story the income statistics miss entirely. The poor in America today have access to smartphones, air conditioning, cars, and healthcare at rates that would have been unimaginable to the middle class of 50 years ago. Absolute living standards have risen dramatically across every income bracket. The progressive argument about inequality focuses entirely on the gap between rich and poor, while ignoring the fact that the floor has risen substantially for everyone. You can simultaneously have a wider gap and a higher floor. Both things are true. The narrative only acknowledges one of them. The causes of income inequality in America are not primarily what the progressive narrative claims. They're not primarily racism, not primarily corporate greed, and not primarily the failure of free markets. They're primarily three things that the left cannot address honestly without undermining their own policy agenda: education and skills. The income premium for a college degree is real and it's grown over several decades. The income premium for a skilled trade is real and it's grown faster than people realize. The income penalty for dropping out of school is real and it's severe. Income disparities that track educational levels are not evidence of a rigged system. They're evidence that skills command market value. The policy response to this, making college free while doing nothing about whether the degree actually produces marketable skills, while simultaneously gutting the vocational education pipeline that would give non-college students a clear path, makes the problem worse, not better. Family structure, the data on this, that's not subtle at all. Married two-parent households have a median income nearly double that of single-parent households. Children raised in single-parent homes are significantly more likely to remain in the bottom income quintile as adults. The collapse of marriage rates, especially among working class Americans, is one of the most powerful engines of income inequality in the country. Progressive welfare policy, which for decades created financial disincentives to marriage among low income families, contributed directly to this collapse. You can't build generational economic stability without stable family formation. The two things are connected at the data level, not just the theological one. Government created barriers to entry, excessive occupational licensing, zoning laws that drive up housing costs, regulations that favor large established corporations over small competitors, a tax code riddled with loopholes that benefit the connected. These are not products of free market. They're the products of government intervention on behalf of incumbent interests. They prevent working class Americans from starting businesses, entering professions, and competing on merit. The crony capitalism that progressives correctly identify as a problem is not a failure of the free market. It's a failure of the government that they want to expand. The standard progressive toolkit for addressing inequality, higher taxes on the wealthy, expanded welfare programs, more government regulation, has a track record. We can examine it. The states and cities with the highest income inequality in America are not low tax, low regulation environments. They are California, New York, and Connecticut, the states with the highest taxes, the most expansive government programs, and the most heavily regulated economies in the country. San Francisco has among the highest concentrations of billionaires and the highest rates of street homelessness of any city in the developed world. The policies have been in place for decades. The inequality has gotten worse, not better, at some point, the experiment has run long enough to evaluate the results. Wealth redistribution does not create wealth. It moves existing wealth around while removing the incentives that it created. The evidence that cutting marginal tax rates on productive economic activity produces growth, and that growth lifts working class incomes, is not ideological. It's the consistent funding of economic history across multiple countries in multiple decades. A rising tide lifts all boats is not a slogan. It's what the employment and wage data shows happens when the economy grows. The policies that actually move working class Americans upward are the same ones we've discussed in our trades episode and our universities episode. Vocational education that produces marketable skills, school choice that allows families to escape failing schools, welfare reform that removes the marriage penalty and requires work, occupational licensing reform that removes barriers to entry, and housing supply reform that makes it possible for working families to live in the communities where the jobs are. None of those are headline grabbing redistribution schemes. All of them have been documented evidence of effectiveness. James says, do not show partiality, not to the rich, not to the poor, equal treatment under the law, equal opportunity for those willing to work. That's the standard. It doesn't produce equal outcomes because people make different choices. They develop different skills and work different hours, but it produces just outcomes. And just outcomes in a free economy with genuine opportunity and without government created barriers are what a moral society should be building toward. The inequality myth is useful to people who want to expand government power to justify wealth confiscation. It's not useful to the working class Americans it claims to be fighting for. Reject the narrative, examine the data, and demand policies that create opportunity rather than manage dependency. Support this network's work at titdusa.com and the Stand Against the Silence campaign. Stand with us, support the mission, refuse the silence. I'll see you next time.